He publicly humiliated me at a dinner table with my parents. His mother said that real men don't apologize to women. All I did back then was stay silent and swallow the degradation. But when fate came full circle, they both, my former fiancé and his arrogant mother, stood before me, seeking my help. This time I smiled, not out of pain, but from the realization that I had won. My name is Megan, I'm 28, and back then, I genuinely believed I had found my forever. Ryan and I met at a party hosted by mutual friends. He was the kind of guy girls dream about, confident, smiling, with a good sense of humor, working for a large real estate company. There was something about him, calm and stable. It seemed like with him, I could finally just be myself, without pressure. The first few months were a fairy tale. He'd send me coffee with well wishes for the day, text, "Did you make it home safe?" every time I returned from work, and even introduce me to his sister, saying he wanted me to feel like part of his family. I was working as a marketer at a small agency, renting a cozy apartment, and dreaming of opening my own agency, but for now, I was just saving money and gaining experience. Ryan said he was proud of me, that I was ambitious, but not too much. I didn't pay attention to those details then, how he sometimes smiled lightly when I spoke about my career, or how he called my job a hobby. A few months later, he invited me to dinner with his parents. I was terribly nervous. His mother, Mrs. Grace, looked like a woman who had everything under control, her son, her husband, and even the air around her. She immediately sized me up from head to toe with a look that contained more cold assessment than curiosity. "You're from a small town, aren't you?" "How sweet," she said, pouring wine. "My son always liked simple girls." I smiled, trying not to show how much that stung. Ryan just squeezed my hand under the table and whispered, "Don't mind her, Mom scares everyone at first." That evening, I felt for the first time that not only love stood between us, but also a shadow, the shadow of his mother, her opinion, her expectations. And although I didn't know then how deeply she would interfere in our lives, I already sensed that something was about to break. I was probably more nervous that evening than ever before. Ryan and I had been dating for over a year, and our parents had arranged a joint family dinner. It sounded perfect, like a step towards something serious, towards an engagement. My mom prepared Ryan's favorite dishes, and Dad even left work early to meet his family. A warm, familial atmosphere filled the air until they crossed the threshold. Mrs. Grace appeared in a flawless suit, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Her husband nodded, but as always, she did the talking. "I see you've made yourselves very cozy here," she said, sweeping our living room with a look that was more critical than admiring. "Yes, we like simplicity," Mom replied cordially. "Oh, simplicity is lovely. But, of course, it doesn't suit everyone." I pretended not to hear. Dad merely raised an eyebrow, and I felt like sinking through the floor. Ryan, as usual, remained silent. Once everyone was seated, the conversation turned to weddings, plans, and work. I tried to keep the atmosphere light, but Mrs. Grace couldn't miss an opportunity to needle me. "Megan, are you still working at that? Small agency, right?" "Yes, for now. But I'm planning to. That's wonderful." Having something to occupy yourself with until the children arrive, she interrupted with a smile. Everyone smiled tensely. Only my dad quietly put down his fork and looked at Ryan. And then, when I tried to crack a joke to lighten the mood, Ryan sharply, even rudely, cut me off. "Megan, maybe enough with your stories? We're not at work." Everyone fell silent. His words sounded cold, sharp like a slap. I offered a confused smile, trying to turn it into a joke, but he continued, "Sometimes you act like a child." Dad said a woman should be calm, not constantly babbling. His mother approved, "Oh, it's nice to see my son has absorbed our family values." My mother was barely restraining her emotions. Dad slowly placed his glass on the table and spoke calmly, but firmly, "Ryan, you just insulted my daughter. And not just that, you did it in front of everyone. I think it would be fair if you apologized." Silence. I looked at him, hoping he would understand. That he would see the pain in my eyes and say something, anything. But his mother responded first. Apologize, she nearly laughed. My son doesn't apologize to anyone. Especially not to a woman. You wouldn't want him to look weak, would you? I felt my throat tightening. Mom touched my hand. Dad stood up and said calmly, in a way that made the room even quieter, "It seems to me that a real man is strong enough to admit when he is wrong." Ryan remained silent. He didn't even look up at me. Then I stood up. "Don't bother," I said. "Seriously. I'm used to it." And I walked away from the table. I felt like I could hear something crack inside me. Not loudly, like glass under thin fabric. That was the moment I stopped fooling myself. I remember standing in the bathroom that evening, looking in the mirror and not recognizing myself. My eyes were red, my hands were shaking, and my head felt empty. I always thought I was strong, but now I felt only exhaustion. From the endless silence, from trying to be convenient, from waiting for him to change one day. When everyone had left, Ryan came to me. "You really blew things out of proportion," he started, without even looking me in the eye. "Mom was just joking, and you caused drama again." I stood silently. "And anyway, your dad overreacted. I'm not going to apologize for every little thing. We just have different perspectives. You're too emotional." I looked at him and felt for the first time that the person in front of me wasn't the man I loved, but a stranger. "Yes, different," I replied calmly. "Because I believe respect is more important than pride." He shrugged. "You're being dramatic again. Just forget it, okay? Mom is always like that." And in that moment, I understood he would never change. He wouldn't defend me, wouldn't support me, wouldn't apologize. Because he didn't even see that he had done anything wrong. The next morning, I packed my things. No shouting, no scene. I wrote a short message. "I don't want to be around those who consider humiliation normal. I wish you happiness. Without me." I put the key to his apartment on the table and walked out. My legs were shaking, but with every step, I felt like I was finally breathing. When I got home, Dad just hugged me. No questions. "No, I told you so. We're proud of you," he said. "You walked away from the table when you weren't valued. Not everyone can do that." The first few days were hard. I cried, I was angry, I doubted myself. But then came the moment when the pain began to turn into strength. I remembered how I once dreamed of opening my own agency. Once, when I still believed in myself. And then I decided it was time to reclaim the version of me they tried to break. I applied for a startup program in Seattle, a grant initiative for young women in marketing. I wrote the motivation letter in the middle of the night with a cup of cold coffee and red eyes. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived. "Congratulations. You have been accepted." I cried again, but this time with joy. When Ryan wrote to me a month later, "I miss you. Mom says we all overreacted. Let's talk." I just replied, "Thank you. But I'm already in a different city. And in a different life." Seattle became a new beginning for me. I rented a small room and worked day and night to launch my own marketing agency. It was hard. Sometimes I felt like I would fail again. But every time I wanted to give up, I remembered that evening at the table, and it gave me strength. After a year, my brand started to grow. I secured my first major clients. My projects appeared in magazines. The people who once called me too emotional now called me inspired. I started laughing genuinely again, without the fear of someone judging me. One day, I looked at myself in the mirror, different, calm, confident. And I thought, there she is, the woman I always wanted to be. Not for anyone. For myself. 2 years passed. My agency now had an office and a team. One morning, I received a request for collaboration from a large company, Grayson Holdings. The name sounded familiar. When I opened the details, my heart froze. The owner was Grace Grayson, Ryan's mother. Their business had hit a crisis due to a press scandal, and now they were looking for a PR specialist to save their reputation. I stared at the email for a long time and smiled. Not out of malice, but from the irony of fate. I agreed to the meeting. Professionally. Without emotion. If they once devalued me, now they came asking for help. One evening, I was invited to speak at a youth business forum to share how to build a brand from scratch. I walked onto the stage, looked out at the audience, and saw a familiar face. Ryan. He was sitting in the second row, in a cheap suit, with eyes gray from fatigue. His mother wasn't next to him, just a lonely man who seemed to have lost the sparkle he once boasted. I continued my speech, not letting emotions take over. I spoke confidently, calmly, as if this was just another audience. But in every word was the truth he once refused to hear. No one has the right to tell you who you must be to be loved. He approached me after the speech. Megan. You've changed completely, he said quietly. No, I replied. I just stopped being the person who was convenient for you. He stood there, confused, and I walked away without even looking back. And for the first time, I understood. True revenge is when you feel nothing at all anymore. A few more weeks passed after that forum. I had already forgotten about Ryan when I received a call one morning. The voice was familiar, cold, but uncertain. Megan, it's Grace. Ryan's mother. We would like to meet. I hesitated but agreed, more out of curiosity than sympathy. We met at a coffee shop. She looked different, tired, without the condescending confidence I remembered. My son made many mistakes, she began. And I did too. We didn't see then that you were the best thing that could have happened to him. Wouldn't you consider giving him another chance? I looked at her and remained silent. And then he appeared. Ryan. He stood behind her, holding a bouquet of white lilies, the same ones I once loved. I've changed, he said. I realized how I betrayed you. You were the one I should have cherished. Give me a chance to prove it. I smiled. But not from tenderness, from serenity. You both taught me one thing, I replied quietly. Forgiveness doesn't mean returning. Sometimes it just means I'm no longer angry. I stood up, leaving the two of them at the table. In the reflection of the glass door on my way out, I saw them standing there, small, confused, so utterly alien. And in that moment, I realized I was finally free.